Most people are involved in disasters. When they are involved, they recover with the support of their families, friends, colleagues, and all. But the efforts of some people's health, relationships, and welfare can be extensive and sustained. Flooding is one that poses substantial social and mental health problems to many, such that they may continue over extended periods of time. Flooding can challenge the psychosocial resilience of the hardest of people. I mean, over the last 10 years, floods in Nigeria have affected millions. In common with other types of major incidents or disasters, the effects of on people's health, on relationships, welfare can be extensive and all of that. So a whole lot of things that I would like to have us discuss this afternoon with Dr. Timi Oyebode, who is a psychotherapist. And you said one other thing the other time?
A trauma expert.
Trauma expert. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
I may have experienced some form of trauma before, but I can't imagine the traumatic experience of flooding consuming your hard-earned property. For those who may just read it in the news and just walk past, what are some of the things that would be happening in the minds of those who have suffered these losses as a result of flooding that many may not really understand or be able to relate to right now?
Oh, okay. Thank you again for having me. One of the core things that happens when there's flooding or any natural disaster, in some cases, even flooding has been attached to man-made disaster based on whatever the cause of it was. But there are some that's just beyond human comprehension, you know, and if you are involved in that, there is a lot going there. The most important thing when we talk about trauma is a sense of safety being taken away. So once a human being has to go through the emotion of, I'm not safe, security is away, there could be trauma. Now, when we talk about some of those, you know, just like you've asked that, what's going on with people who had experienced this flooding in particular? Of course, remember, it has to do with their substantial existence, the things they own, their properties, certificates, wealth, assets, all gone within a twinkle of an eye. In fact, much more are those who actually had to be rescued, who had fears that their lives was going to go with the flood. So when we talk about mental health in this context, we know there's a lot they are battling with, from the fears of, oh, am I even going to be able to catch up all over again? Or would I recover all of this? Oh, what about nightmares? What about disturbing thoughts? What about anxiety? Some could experience depression. It could go as far as anything. And that's why those of us who are not directly affected need to be a bit more empathetic. However, like you also mentioned, how does it play out for those who are not even directly affected? Because amazing is the fact that many of us who are not directly affected could also be victims of trauma. When you have to observe and to see and to realize another human being is going through this kind of experience, and the overwhelming emotion alone could actually make it so real to you, because the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So once you could key in into the emotions, you practically could feel it the same way the direct victims are feeling it. So overall, I would say that first, importantly, is that we should be aware that it's not just a random loss, or it's not a loss that, oh, they will get over it. No, many might never get over it. And when they do, or if they do, they may never be the same again, which is why we recommend that intervention comes in quick and early. Once there is support system, particularly as regards their mental health. Some of them may be able to scale through, though, like I said, It might not be the same way ever again. They might be better off mentally now. Or if support doesn't come in, they might actually go more down.
There's a picture you painted now which brought in perhaps an even more grievous picture, which is that, I mean, they could protect themselves, at least try to protect themselves against burglary, against armed robbery, against any form of incursion, build fences, have what's it called, CCTV, some technological security gadgets to protect themselves. But there is no way they could have been able to protect themselves against the invasion of water.
So life, threat to life.
That which is a threat to life. I mean, so the shock of
Yeah.
how did this happen?
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was going to come.
In fact, sir, not just even that alone. There's also the part of a guilt of surviving because they saw other people who the flood took away. So how come I survived? A father whose 3 kids went with the flood, a mother, a neighbor. So they're dealing with a lot. So it's not just the fact that, one, the threat to their life is there, like, oops, I could have almost died. Oh, yes, property gone. But how come I survived? My daughter didn't survive, my son didn't survive, my neighbor, my uncles didn't survive. And so they're dealing with it a lot. Or maybe someone who was holding on to someone when the flood pulled them apart. Oh, maybe I didn't hold well enough. Oh, and so you have a lot of guilt, a lot of emotions that needs to be analyzed, reinterpreted, and given in the right context for them to be able to move on.
Okay. Another, level or, category of loss, if I can put it that way, is those people who got loans, subventions, some funding that is not theirs primarily to invest in farmlands. And now it's all submerged. And, we heard from a report that our correspondent, went to take outside of town that this fellow got money to do a business, invested in rice farming, and he knows the number of days that, a rice farmland can be submerged underwater, but that by now, the number of days have been far exceeded twice over. Consequently, that investment is lost, and they are running into millions, of naira that they have invested. Some took loans. They have to repay the loans irrespective. At least they're alive.
Yeah.
What do those do? What are they dealing with?
There's a lot, actually. I know that the business experts would always talk about, farmers having insurance and all of that. But you and I know we're in Nigeria. And as much as many of this, as much as this is the right path to take, where those farmers were insured, maybe some of their losses could be incurred back. But the truth is, even with insurance, how many gets it back that way? And I think this is where a lot of concerns has to come in, even from the government, as regards finances, especially for those farmers, particularly those who had to take loans, those who had to take things. And what makes it a bit tight for them now is the fact that they might not even have evidences to show how far the work had gone, to show that they actually planted things or invested the money. So it could become a bit dramatic for such ones. And this is when you now have people giving up. So our own job, and this is why I said government needs to come in, government needs to help them get access to psychotherapy help. Sincerely, we need to be a bit more proactive when it comes to people's wellness mentally. Someone who lost everything, if he's able to get himself, he possibly could be able to start all over again and even pay off most of those loans.
I was joking with my producer earlier when we were coming into the studio this morning that government is trying to provide help, some form of support, some form of assistance to a good number of these victims, giving them IDP camps, internally displaced person camps, and this and that. So I was just saying jokingly, perhaps trying to compare, if someone wants to assist you to get back on your feet. Let's say you are using an SUV, maybe which one now, and maybe a Ford Escape before the flooding, and you lost that Ford Escape to a flood.
Okay.
You know what it took you, how long it took you
to get that in the
work
first place.
and raise the money and everything to get that. Now you've lost that. You don't have that car. Government wants to support you, and they say, okay, we're so sorry about your loss. Here is a Kia Picanto. Now, the disparity is right there.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about the mind of the person.
Yeah.
We have these figures. I think I saw it in the course of last week or so, or even earlier on in the week, from the Minister of Health, that something in the region of, I think, between 50 and 70 million Nigerians are living with mental health issues.
Exactly.
Most certainly, these figures will increase because of the number of people that are having to go through this now.
That's even the reported figures. We still have figures that are not reported. There's so many in the rural areas that do not even bring up their cases. And so, you know, when we talk about statistics here, we're quite poor.
Okay. So in terms of aid, what, while we can go ahead and provide food for them and all those other things, you talked about the need for psychosocial assistance.
Support, yes.
How should that be engaged now?
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, sir. Please, let's be mindful that even statistics tells us that we have just in fact, 0.00%, 10% of psychosocial helpers available, trained available. And that is why some of us had to step into the place where when you have, when people have interest in helping others, how can we increase the helpers? How can we increase the number of available hands that could step in to help other people mentally? Because like you had said, someone who had had it all together before, and then within a twinkle of an eye, all gone. Someone said something sometimes back. It said he just bought a car. I think I had one of those ministers, and he said he was riding in that big, beautiful car, and just down the road, robbers stopped him, took his car from him, and was left on the road. And he had to move from that spot back to his house or wherever he was going. And he said it dawned on him that some few minutes ago, I was in a big car, a new brown car, and almost within less than 2, 3, 5 minutes, I became carless. And he said that was a divine moment for him. What is important for everyone who had actually had to go through such an experience is something I call mental reorientation. Being able to get your mind, be in control of that space, and be able to put things into like a block log, like arrange them into perspectives right there in the mind. Because the truth is, no one will understand your loss right now. Only you, because what you went through to acquire whatever that thing is, you knew it. Others might not. People might trivialize, is it not just a car? Oh, thank God you're alive. And which is part of what I say to people. Don't say that to trauma victims. Don't say to them, oh, thank God you're alive. You can always get it all back together. No, it doesn't work that way. Because like I said earlier, some may never get it back together. So what is important is the individual, first of all, should be determined. Call up the fighter spirit within you. For you to have gone this far in the first place, you can stand up again. So when the individual is able to put up that fighting spirit, the next thing is to be able to now have self-talks, conversations with yourself, to say to yourself, no one might understand you right now, but you want to be deliberate to make sure that in all of this, you do not lose your sanity. Once your sanity is intact also, then we can now start talking about, okay, what next should you do? And I think that is why I would always encourage you to get into therapy. If government is not even making it available for you, please, there are therapists around. There are helpers around who would sit with you to put into perspective everything that happened and then help you to start all over as needful. For government...
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sir. For government, I'm going to emphasize this again. There are social workers in town. There are psychotherapists, there are professional counselors who are trained in the act of mental health counseling, okay? And I would always want that whenever there are emergencies like this, the call for volunteers, the call for people in this circle should be made so that they know that they are needed and they could step up into the positions as at that time. But you know, it's another thing when you know you are available, but you are not aware that your service could be needed. So, yes, I would always say this also to professional counselors, psychotherapists, social workers, mental health experts, any one of us out there. Once there are crises like this, maybe we no longer have to wait for the government to reach out to us. Maybe we can reach out to them, but through which media? How? So we need to have that well spelled out for professionals to be able to step in.
This is one of those those platforms.
Yes,
they
they
didn't
should
exist,
call on us, sincerely.
Okay, but add to that. Now let's just sincerely hope that government is listening now, because our people really, really do need to have their heads together if they're going to contribute to national development. In this same space, I mean, we've talked about lots of things. We understand that there are more than 600 people whose lives have been lost to
this particular one.
This disaster. Fathers, mothers, children, uncles, aunties, brothers, sisters, to some people who are still very well alive. How do we begin to quantify and minister to people in the area of the loss of a sibling, a child, a brother, a sister, a spouse, or something? Earlier, we had a conversation here with a young lady who said she got a Heroes Award from some corporate organization for rescuing her brother from a fire. Now, she could rescue her elder brother. But those right now, some of them watching us, have been unable to rescue any of these more than 600 people. How do we begin to help them see things?
Okay, so in that case, we need now to call upon our community spirit. And so directly, those around them immediately would have to step in first. And I think that would have to do with the direct government in the States.
But don't forget that some of the people, you said it the other time yourself, you held the hand of someone, you lost that person, the person died. You're still going through the trauma of losses. Now you have to deal with the trauma of another lost human being and also.
And so that's why the first thing will be the community support. The community support now is going to be directly for those who are involved. They need to come together and support one another. First of all, the survivors. Okay, so if you have survived this, it's not a time to talk about enmity. It's not a time to, oh, you hurt me before. It's a time when human had to go through high extent of loss. It is one of the things that binds us together and calls upon our inner strength. So it's time for them to synergize and hold one another. That's the survivors first. Now, in the bid of doing that, trying to see who needs what, we're also definitely going to call on all the religious bodies that are in their community there, the churches, the imams, the traditional leaders. They need to now step in, because it's not just enough to be there praying for people. There is need for action now. Now, this is inclusive of visitations. While we're still talking about, and as much as we can give them to recuperate anything lost, material things, and all kind of support we can give to them, it is now. And like I said earlier, this is time psychotherapists, professional counselors, mental health experts need to step in, so that if we can mitigate that part of them, nationally, we might not feel so much of the impact, but the truth is these people had gone through a lot, and they need help to be able to even be able to move on. Talk less of getting it all back.
Okay. I'm glad you spoke to communities.
Yes, sir.
Because these things happened in states.
Yeah.
And Consequently, it gives responsibility to some state governments as well. We understand that a number of states have been going out. River State has gone out. I think Kogi State has also gone out to begin to assist people, sending them supplies. The federal government has been sending to a good number of states that have had this.
That's true.
You know, so the states themselves have been doing something.
Do it.
So can you, because I also know that, well, I want to believe that the ministries of health
In
in
those
each of these
communities?
states will have some of these health angles that you're talking about. How many of these, how much of the issues people, the flood victims, direct victims and indirect victims,
Do it.
how much of what they are going through now would have to do with, how much of it will be cultural? Because there are those who have sentimental attachments based on generations upon generations, you know, of, okay, this is our ancestral home, ancestral pen, ancestral pencil, ancestral plate, ancestral spoon, and all. How much of that, you know, is involved here, and how serious is that in the scheme of mental health?
Oh, yes, it's highly serious. I recollect hearing one of the leaders in the community there talking about, well, the flood is not a new thing to them. It happens. Maybe the one for this year came with higher magnitude compared to what has always been. And immediately they started giving interpretation. While some people have said, oh, maybe it's the God of the lands, maybe this, maybe that. You know, what is important, we cannot take culture away from the people. And that's a bit why it's difficult also to take the people away from the place, because you might say, oh, if they've gone through that before, why are they still there? But the truth is, it's their land, it's their place, and there's a way humans are attached to the land. Now, in this scenario, it is ideal that we understand culture has a lot to play when it comes to our mental health also. In fact, for many experts, they know that for you to help anybody mentally, you need to have an understanding of that person's culture. Because what you might think is an awkward behavior may actually be acceptable in that culture. So being able to look holistically at their wellness is what is important now. Putting their culture into perspective, does these communities respectively, and also being able to now say, okay, you know what, above all, what is important is how you're going to fare again. If you believe that this was a cause of the gods or is a cause of the land or something, how do we move on? Do you need prayers? Do you need, that's why when we talk about psychosocial support, it's actually holistic. It goes into the spiritual aspect, also the physical aspect, and then the emotional aspect. So you see, all three is what is needful now to be able to tackle all this. So we can't separate any of it. The spiritual part has to come in, particularly because we're dealing with culture, and you know, spirituality is also a culture, one way or the other. You know, while some people could have so much attachment to some beliefs, and that is why they might not move. Okay, but we have to understand that, and that's why we can't judge them. We just need to help them to be able to take a grip and be whole parts of them.
The transition is an issue, though, right?
Yes. The transition is going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. We're not going to say to anyone that it's going to be easy on you. But one thing I know, with my years of experience with working with trauma victims, is that each of us heal at different times, different paces. But if you're consistent on the process of healing, you would also get there. Healing is a journey. It's not a destination.
But then there's also the motivation to want to heal.
Exactly, and that's where they now need therapists. Because for you to even have that motivation, you need someone to help you to put things in perspective and give you the morale and let you know where the healing journey could take you through. So that's why I'm emphasizing the place of counselors being called in to help out in all of this.
Now, there are those who have, should I call them, local counselors.
Okay.
You know, I'm just saying.
Yes, you're right, sir.
Because, you know, there are those who, once something like that happens, say, you know, just accept it that way. It's just the way it is. God that caused it and all those things. How helpful are those?
In fact, such people would cause more damage than good. Because when some of the words used, when the person goes through them later, it brings them down more. So specifically, we'd always say we don't need counselors by passion or counselors by, okay, you know, I'm an elder, I can talk to you, because they would make sincere errors and lead people more down the path that could be more painful for them. And that's why I'm emphasizing trained professional experts. They are available. They're available. They are right here in this same country with us. And we just need to let them take their role.
Okay.
You know, and please, sir, also in addition to that is also understanding that there are keywords that we don't say. But, you know, like we said, those people might not know. So when you said, oh, sorry about it, you know, God would recoup you back, you'll be fine again. Words like that, they're not healthy. Oh, maybe you caused it. No, they're not healthy. Oh, okay, what should I do to help you? How can you help them? That should be the question, not what, because there are so many things going on in their head, and they are there thinking, why won't you talk that way? Because you are not in my shoes. So it's needful that we become more empathetic, even as a community, as a people. All of us, including the press.
It's interesting that, you know, we have a default setting in our part of the world. You just want to solve the person's problem. So empathy is a language that is completely straight to us. If I can say it, I just want to empathize with you. What does it even mean? Some people be wondering.
Sometimes all they need might just be your silence, might just be you there giving them a hug. Might not be about provisions, it might not be about what solutions. No. No, sometimes all they need is silence, as golden as that can be. So I think overall, for us all that might be listening today, maybe we could take one or two key things from this.
So silence also speaks. Now I know.
A lot.
Dr. Timi Oyebode, psychotherapist and trauma expert, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation this morning and for helping us heal from this tremendous loss that we're still going through.
Thank you for having me. Okay.